While Speaker hopefuls are working the phones, others in the GOP are working overtime to punish the 8 rebels who pushed McCarthy off that cliff last night.
Good job, guys.
Throwing the House and the Republican Party into expletive-filled chaos, infighting, backbiting, backstabbing. Really, you can pick any word here. The bottom line is, it's bad. I'll speak with one of the...
It's bad. Joke.
Those rebels, perhaps the most surprising one of all of them, in just a moment. But first, listen to how 2 Republican congressmen describe just how tense things are inside their party on Capitol Hill right now.
What's this guy?
I'll be really candid. I think if we had stayed together in the meeting last night, I think that...
Hey, Garrett, did you borrow your shirt from John Betterman?
Fist thrown, and I'm not being dramatic when I say that. There is a lot of raw emotions right now.
Fake news.
Different.
This guy.
There was anger. There was frustration. And
Kaitlan Collins repeats Democrat Party propaganda on the fake news. Listen.
That job. One person that we should note that it won't be, despite some wishful thinking by some of his Republican allies.
The headline on the screen is, Speaker Trump is not possible. But Kaitlin, if they change the rules, it could be possible.
Donald Trump. Yes, it is true. The Speaker of the House does not need to be a member of Congress.
Oh my gosh.
But perhaps the most obvious reason is the one that is spelled out in the House Republican rules. It says any member who is indicted on felony charges...
All right, you have a point. Fake news. They can change the rules, Kaitlin. You're fake news. Caitlin's trying to start a fight. Let's watch.
You during this exhaustive press conference that he had last night after you voted to oust him.
Nancy Mace is a whole nother story. Okay? Let's just be honest here. I called Nancy Mace's chief of staff yesterday. And, because I called the chief of staff? Well, she was on The View saying I didn't keep my words. I called her chief of staff because, I don't know, maybe I don't connect her with something else. But I just said to him, I said, can you please tell me, I don't understand, where have I not kept my word? You know what her chief of staff said? You have kept your word, 100%. But if you have a problem with the bill, I want to help you. But
stop funding Ukraine.
I can't sit there and write your entire bill
Impeach
and
Joe
work it all the
Biden.
way through committee.
And Congresswoman, he is essentially suggesting that you were lying when you said he did not keep his word. What's your response?
She's trying to start a fight.
Well, and I'm very familiar with how to write a bill. Women in Congress can draft, write, file, and pass legislation. And so the facts are on our side. I was very public about what kind of deals and negotiations and legislation that he would back and support me on throughout the entirety of this year. That's all a matter of public record, including the timing of those pieces of legislation. And to date, none of those things actually came true. And so my focus today is to focus on the future, to focus on the opportunity here that we have as a party, as a country, to come together and find a speaker who will tell the truth, find a speaker who will be honest and keep their word. Because you can't tell conservatives one thing, tell moderates another, tell Democrats something else. That's not leadership, and that's not building consensus if you tell everybody different things. And so we have a lot of work to do. We've got to roll up our sleeves, and I'm very much looking forward to the speaker's race next week. I will meet with every candidate that throws their hat in the ring. This is a real opportunity for us to do what we said we were.
About 2 minutes ago, Nancy Mace just said she's very familiar with how to write a bill. Women in Congress can draft, write, file, and pass legislation. Now, about a minute and a half later, listen to what Kaitlan Collins says about that.
Be doing for the American people.
Well, your bill on the backlog of rape kits in the U.S., it has gotten out of committee. It has not gotten a full floor House vote. I mean, the question, though, is do you think that whoever is the next speaker, be it Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, anyone else who can actually get to 218, will be more moderate than McCarthy?
Good question, Kaitlin.
Important
Fake news. Okay, look, Steve Bannon, Matt Gaetz, Nancy Mace. Listen to her questions.
Establishment is coming after me. I've gotten a lot of threats from different groups and different members that they will withhold fundraising no matter what. And I do need help from the people. And that was a decision that I made late last night because of everything that was going on. And it is a genuine ask. And if people want to support the effort, they can go to Nancy Mace.
You got a good question, Kaitlin?
Well, that podcast was one that is done by Steve Bannon. Of course, you once voted to hold him in contempt of Congress, which he brought up today. Is he now advising you?
No, nobody. I mean, I have consultants, but he is not one of them.
She had one interview with him, and now he's advising her.
Often
Fake
make my decisions
news.
on my own volition. I don't take pressure from the outside world or outside groups generally. I'm not beholden to anyone anywhere, not in D.C. I'm only beholden to the people, and I make decisions on legislation.
Well, let's get straight to the source now with New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker.
Liar.
Senator, thanks so much
He's a
for
liar.
joining me.
Cheat.
I wonder, when you look
Cheater.
at what happened in Washington last night, where this is going, how does the paralysis in the House affect your ability to function in the Senate?
Well, we've seen
Another great question, Kaitlin.
already.
Fake news.
We've seen deals get done when it comes to McCarthy and Schumer and Mitch McConnell and the president. All
McCarthy, Schumer, McConnell, and Biden. He's praising them.
agree on a big spending deal.
They're
And
so
because
great
of
for our
the
government, right,
sort of
Cory?
intransigence of a very narrow, extreme minority, part of the Republican caucus, the right wing, then McCarthy suddenly betrays the deal and walks away. And so it brings a lot of frustration over to the Senate when we are
Listening to
passing
this
bipartisan
does not inform you
appropriation
about
bills when we
news.
are getting
You're
things
fake news,
in the
Kaitlin.
Senate
You asked a stupid question. Kaitlin cannot stop talking about Ukraine.
And speaking of Ukraine, at least one of the leading contenders for the job to replace Kevin McCarthy right now is against more funding for Ukraine. That's what Jim Jordan told reporters today. I mean, do you believe that U.S. support for Ukraine is in doubt because of McCarthy's ouster?
Well, let me make it clear. It is. I'm confident that the overwhelming majority, Democrats and Republicans in the House, support standing with Ukraine, standing for freedom, standing against authoritarianism, and have learned.
Standing with Ukraine is not standing for freedom and against authoritarianism.
The lessons of history. I know in the Senate, the majority of us, Democrats and Republicans, again, believe in standing with Ukraine, standing against Putin's unjust war, and understanding that we don't stand
It's your unjust war, you and the Democrat Party.
here, the cost will be extraordinarily more expensive in the long run. We agree in the majority here. But if the whole government is going to turn on a handful of people whose allegiance is not to America, not to freedom, not to democracy, but to Donald Trump, and they're going to find ways to tear the House down if they don't get their way, then we have a problem. It is existentially important that we stand with Ukraine right now. We stand with democracy, we stand with freedom. And I'm telling you,
it's not freedom.
If it was good enough for Republicans when Ronald Reagan stood up against
the war in
then
Ukraine.
Soviet Empire.
No cameras are allowed in the courtroom for the actual proceedings once they begin. Just a quick view at the top, as you can see.
No cameras allowed in the courtroom, but the bottom of the screen, the headline is, "Frustrated Trump struggles to contain his emotions at courthouse." Fake news.
See here. But CNN's Team Inside reports that it was a tense day in that courtroom. At times, the former president struggled to contain his emotions, throwing up his hands in response to comments that the judge was making. At lunch, he left the courthouse to go back to Florida, then eventually back to campaighing this weekend. But if you ask the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, he never really stopped.
I will not be bullied. And so Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt, a fundraising stop.
It was your political stunt, and he took advantage of it and fundraised off it.
Trump's campaign says it raised more
Your
than
political
$45 million.
stunt. You guys are. Kaitlan Collins is an obvious Democrat. She reports fake news. Listen.
To be really remarkable, but it's not like we're not hearing from him because he has been essentially speaking nonstop since he's been here. The judge actually took the step of issuing a limited gag order yesterday, don't even mention my staff, but certainly don't attack them, after he was making some pretty gross comments about the principal deputy clerk in this situation.
Pretty gross.
The judge has said that he would issue sanctions if Trump breaks that, but what could he really do?
So he'll issue fines.
The headline on the bottom of the screen is, "Trump insults New York AG. Trial judge the day after gag order issued, protecting the judge's staff."
This is what he will do.
Criminals.
It's theoretically
Democrats,
possible that
judges.
down the road, if he said, if you do it again, I'm going to hold you in contempt, and he held him in contempt, you might get to a situation where if he kept going, he could try to put him in jail.
Which would be really remarkable, but...
The new Democrat narrative is that Rudy Giuliani was drunk when he gave President Trump counsel to say that the election was stolen. This is ridiculous. This is for stupid people, and it's fake news. Listen to this chump.
So I wasn't in the room when he allegedly told Trump, just say you won, drunkenly. So it was very good reporting, though, I must say. Very in-depth. A lot of sources, most of them anonymous, but it was well researched and reported.
But they kind of
well researched and reported by anonymous sources. The New York Times.
Look into this window. They note that, and they look into this window.
Democrat
that was amplified, and they have all of these people. Some of them who are not anonymous that are on the record.
The only reason Kaitlan Collins has a show on CNN is because she reports Democrat Party and deep state propaganda. You're fake news.
Well, can you imagine Trump saying that under advice of drunken counsel, I won the election? I mean, that sounds like what the defense will be.
Well, and to that point,
liar.
I mean, this is why it's legally relevant, because there is a defense advice of counsel. I was listening to the advice of my lawyers, and it was reasonable, it wasn't outrageous, and I had a decent basis to rely.
Donald Trump did not need Rudy Giuliani's advice to tell him that the election was stolen. This is ridiculous. They have nothing better to talk about on this fake news show.
Visibly or detectably drunk in a way that Jack Smith can prove, it really undermines that.
Yeah, well, and to remind everyone, given the news cycle we live in and how rapidly things happen, this has actually been confirmed by someone.
The only reason Kaitlan Collins has a show on CNN is she reports Democrat and deep state propaganda and lies. You're fake news, Kaitlin. This trans woman right here, she has good experience, and she was in the Navy, and she really sounds like she wants to get the job done for the people. But Kaitlin, of course, doesn't want to talk about any of that. She just wants to talk about her being trans. Let's listen.
They say all politics is local, of course. One thing that people, of course, will look for when you're in this role and what this means is a bigger national picture, though, of course, is more than 220 laws have been introduced this year, a lot of them specifically targeting transgender people. How do you plan to use your voice when it comes to that issue specifically?
Well, I really try to kind of separate that. I have a job to do in Nashville and to work on infrastructure, utilities, and transit, and I plan to work very hard on that. I retired a couple years ago, and I plan to spend most of my effort on that. But I also will spend some time to try to advocate for LGBT rights, especially T.
Yeah, you mentioned that you have been through a lot and that you lost a lot of friends, some contact with family members, your job. I just wonder how you're feeling tonight.
I tell people a lot of times that, imagine what your greatest wish is, and whether that be to Miss America or a billionaire or whatever, and imagine what your greatest wish, and then imagine how you would feel if you woke up tomorrow and your wish came true. And that's what it's like for most trans people once they get to a point where they transition.
Till they regret their transition and realize they cut off their private parts. Fake news.